Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something different. We're starting a new series called Spooky Stories with Angela. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be spooked. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, I saw something outside my window. My room then had a bay window with a built-in bench, so you could sit on it or use it as storage. It sits about 4 feet off the ground if you're looking at it from the outside, and about 2 feet out from the house. During the day, it let the light shine in just right, and the view from my window is a bit of lawn that leads into the woods. One night, after my parents tucked me in, turned out the light, I rolled over and was trying to fall asleep to the rain. Rain is the best, isn't it? Now, I didn't sleep with a nightlight or any light in my room. My room was down at the end of the hall. At the beginning of the hallway is a door that you can shut. My parents would shut this door after putting us to sleep so they could go and do their own things without waking us up. So there is no light except the occasional lighting. So, as I was trying to fall asleep, watching the lightning and listening to the rain, doing the slow blink kids do before I fall asleep, I see eyes. Eyes. Yellow, glowing eyes. Of course, I scream, and then I start screaming for my mom and dad. They come bounding in, ask what happened and what was wrong. I'm crying and pointing to the window, sobbing. Eyes, eyes, Daddy, there's eyes. My dad gives me that look of, really? And says, there's nothing there. Everything is fine. The thunder probably scared you. All the while, my mother is sitting with me on the bed, rubbing my back and saying, it's okay, and so on. Beginning to calm down, I believed them enough to lay back down and say goodnight. This time, my parents leave the door open as a just in case. So after they leave, I just face the door instead of the window, and I finally fall asleep. I wake up the following morning, forgotten about my scare last night. I go on to do what 4 or 5-year-olds usually do. Cut to that night. Normal night routine, not remembering the previous evening, and literally just ready to go to sleep. My parents tuck me in, I say goodnight, and leave the door open. Again, I started to doze off facing the door instead of the window. This night there was no rain, no storms, just crickets. For some reason, I was pretty restless that night. I kept tossing and turning. I just couldn't get comfortable. At one point, I ended up opening my eyes and was facing the window. When my eyes focused some, I saw them. Again, the yellow glowing eyes. But this time they blinked. At this point, I screamed for my dad. My dad comes in, flips on the bedroom light, rubs his eyes while trying to figure out which way is up. I'm pretty sure they were sleeping. He asks what's wrong again, and I go through the same spiel as the night before. Again, he says it's nothing, probably a curious deer. He even went and turned out the bedroom light and showed me there was nothing there. I told my dad the eyes blinked, and he said, yeah, that's why what you saw was probably a deer. In my little head, I don't believe him because deer don't have eyes like that. My mom finds a nightlight and plugs it in the hallway. I told her the light was too bright and I couldn't sleep with it in the hallway. At this point, my parents are getting irritated. Rightfully so, as I'm being unreasonable, and it was probably like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I could tell they were getting flustered, and I knew if I kept it up, I'd be more than likely to get in trouble. My mom decided she would plug it in the bathroom at the beginning of the hall and leave that door cracked, and mine as well, so there would not be a lot of light. Tucked back in, good nights, and the added, it's late. There's nothing here. It was just a deer that probably saw something in your room. When you screamed, you probably scared it away. You're fine, okay? Go back to sleep. No more waking us up. There's nothing to be scared of. Then he tells me to turn over and look out the window. and again points and says, "There's nothing there." I nod my head and I roll over and say goodnight. I keep my eyes closed and face the door, and eventually I fall asleep. The next day, I have what I saw fresh in my mind throughout the day. I couldn't stop thinking about the yellow eyes I saw. That night, going through the nightly routine before saying goodnight, my dad sits on my bed. "We are not going to do this I see eyes thing tonight, right? You know what that was, don't you?" I nod my head, not wanting to get into trouble. "It was a deer, right?" Again, I nod my head. "Okay, I love you. Go to sleep. There is nothing out there that can hurt you, let alone get in here. You are perfectly safe, and there is no reason for you to get up unless you need to go to the bathroom. Your mom left the nightlight on in the bathroom if you need. Go to bed. Good night, sweet dreams. I love you." Both my parents give me a kiss goodnight, tuck me in, turn out the light, and then leave. I pull my covers up over my head and tried to force myself to sleep. Of course I couldn't and just kept tossing and turning. At one point, I had turned over and knew I was facing the window. I still had the covers pulled up over my head. I remember laying there as still as I could and breathing as quietly as I could. I started to pull the covers over my eyes as slowly as I could to look out the window. There was nothing there. I felt relieved for a moment and took the covers off my head, and I was ready to get comfortable again. Once I laid my head back down on my pillow, I looked back at the window. There they were. Same place, same height, same everything. Those yellow, glowing eyes. I was frozen. I couldn't move. I didn't want to move. I just kept staring. There they were, blinking at me. But tonight the eyes moved side to side, just slightly. I covered my head and closed my eyes tight. Then my brain kicked into gear and I hopped out of bed with my cover wrapped around me, flipped my room light on, ran down the hall to the bathroom, grabbed the nightlight and plugged it in my room. I turned my bedroom light off and hopped back into bed, again engulfing myself in my covers. I eventually fell asleep. I never said anything to my parents about it again because I knew they wouldn't believe me. I never saw it after that night, and my parents, they still don't believe me. I've had to have every window covered at night since. This is an interesting story. The reason I chose this is because I've had a very similar experience when I was younger growing up. I remember being absolutely terrified to go to bed, terrified of my room. Every time my parents turned off the lights, I would see things on my wall, and they weren't just shadows. They were actually like black beings that were moving against my walls. And I had that same feeling of being scared in my bed with the covers over my head and my eyes tightly pressed together and just praying that the night would end. If you guys have had a similar experience to this, leave a comment down below. Thank you guys so much for listening to this spooky story with me. If you're interested in donating to this channel, my Venmo, Cash App, and Super Thanks are all listed down below in the description box. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope all of you have a great night.